Everyone thinks they know the story of Persephone, a young goddess stolen from the world of the living, a mother who destroyed the earth, trying to get her back, a victim at the center of the most famous abduction in all of Greek mythology. But she ate the seeds. She knew exactly what they meant, and she never once tried to leave. This is the real story of Persephone, and it's not the story you were told. To understand who Persephone was, you have to understand what she was born into. Her mother was Demeter, goddess of the harvest, one of the most powerful Olympians in existence. The entire world's food supply answered to her will. Every crop, every season, every moment of abundance or starvation on earth was hers to command. And Demeter had one child, one daughter, the center of everything she had ever loved. Persephone grew up in a world of impossible beauty, meadows that bloomed wherever she walked, nymphs as constant companions, a mother who watched over her with an attention that never wavered, never relaxed, never allowed for a single unguarded moment. From the outside, it looked like paradise, but there's a difference between being loved and being kept. And Persephone had never once been allowed to find out what was on the other side of the meadow. The gods of Olympus noticed her. Of course they did. Apollo pursued her. Hermes pursued her. Ares, who wanted everything that moved, pursued her. Demeter turned them all away without hesitation. Her daughter was not for any of them. She was to remain exactly as she was, forever, untouched by anything difficult or dark or real. What Demeter didn't account for was Hades, not another suitor with ambition, not another Olympian looking for a conquest. Hades had ruled the dead longer than most civilizations had existed. He had governed alone with total consistency, with a code that no other god on Olympus had ever managed to maintain. He didn't want to possess Persephone. He wanted a queen. He went to Zeus and asked for her hand, and Zeus, who was both her father and Hades' brother, agreed, without telling Demeter, without asking Persephone. The plan was made between two gods, about a third, as if her own future was simply not hers to weigh in on. The abduction, as history calls it, happened in a meadow in Sicily. A Narcissus had been placed there deliberately, impossibly beautiful, unlike anything else in the field. Persephone reached for it, and the earth split open beneath her feet. Black horses, a chariot made of shadow, a god rising from the dark. Every version of the myth says she screamed. And she did. But the accounts stopped there, at the sound and the descent, as if what happened next wasn't worth recording. It was worth recording. The underworld was nothing like what she had been raised to imagine. It wasn't chaos, wasn't punishment, wasn't a place designed for suffering. It was a kingdom. Ancient, orderly, vast beyond comprehension. The river Styx ran along its outer boundary. The Lethe carried the memories of the dead. The asphodel fields stretched across the interior, where ordinary souls wandered in a grey, emotionless quiet. And beneath everything, Tartarus, where the truly wicked received punishments designed with perfect, personal precision. Hades didn't imprison her. He showed her all of it. Every river, every field, every soul arriving at the gates and receiving the same impartial judgment, regardless of whether they had been a king or a beggar in life. She had grown up surrounded by beauty. She had never once seen reality. Here, for the first time, she was seeing the full truth of existence. Every life that had ever mattered. Every death that had ever come. Meanwhile, above the earth, Demeter had already begun to unravel. She searched everywhere. She stopped eating. She stopped sleeping. She let the harvest die, which meant the harvest abandoned the world. Crops withered, rivers dried. In the city of Eleusis, a priestess named Iambe found Demeter wandering the roads, hollow-eyed and barely recognizable, a goddess who had forgotten what she was because she couldn't remember why it mattered. The sky over the mortal world turned the color of ash. Humans began dying by the thousands, not from war, not from plague, but from starvation. From the simple absence of a goddess, who had stopped caring about anything except her daughter. Zeus received the prayers of the dying. And eventually, because the dying wouldn't stop, he had no choice but to act. There was one rule that governed the underworld above all others. Any soul that consumed food or drink from within its borders became bound to it, not imprisoned, bound, tied to the rhythm of the kingdom itself. Persephone knew this. She was a goddess. She had been raised by the woman who governed the natural laws of the living world. The rules of the dead were not a mystery to her. She stood in front of the pomegranate. She counted out 6 seeds, and she ate them. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't manipulation. This was a goddess who had spent her entire existence being protected from everything, standing alone in a kingdom that had shown her more truth than her whole prior life, making a choice that she understood completely. 6 seeds, 6 months, a compromise she had written into existence with her own hands. When Zeus sent Hermes to retrieve her, Hermes descended, expecting to find a prisoner. What he found instead was a queen, seated beside the ruler of the dead, composed, unhurried, every inch the monarch of a kingdom that contained more souls than the living world had ever held. The compromise was negotiated, 6 months below, 6 months above. Demeter accepted because she had no other option. The world began to breathe again. But look carefully at what the deal revealed. In the underworld, Persephone was not secondary to Hades. She was feared independently. The dead responded to her presence in ways that were entirely her own. She had developed her own authority, her own relationships with the souls under her rule, a power that existed completely apart from her mother or her husband, or any other god's reflected glory. On Olympus, she had been a daughter, beloved, protected, carefully managed, defined entirely by her relationship to a woman who loved her too much to let her become herself. In the underworld, she was a ruler, whole, uncontained, exactly as dangerous as she chose to be. Every year when Persephone returns to the surface, the earth responds, flowers open, crops grow, the world fills with light again. Demeter's grief becomes joy and the seasons shift. And every year when she descends again, the world grows cold and dark and still. The leaves fall, the fields go dormant, the sky closes itself off like something preparing for a long absence. For 3,000 years, humans have called that season a tragedy. But consider the other interpretation. Persephone chose 6 seeds. She chose 6 months. She chose a kingdom where she was a queen instead of a daughter. And she returns to it every single year, without fail, on a schedule entirely of her own making. The world doesn't go dark because she was taken. The world goes dark because she went home. That's the dark truth about Persephone. The goddess everyone pitied was the only one who actually chose her own life. The Abduction story was written by people who couldn't imagine that a young woman might look into the darkness and decide, freely, that it was exactly where she wanted to be. Welcome to Keros Mythos, Greek mythology without the filter.